Today, we're tackling a book that's been making waves in the productivity and self-improvement world for years, James Clear's Atomic Habits. You've probably heard the buzz, but what's really inside this book? And does it live up to the hype? Today, I'm breaking down everything you need to know, from its core ideas to some points where I believe it falls short. Let's get into it. Every single one of us, at some point, has aspired to personal improvement. Whether it's adopting a healthier lifestyle, mastering a new language, becoming more financially disciplined, or simply being more present in our daily lives, the desire for positive change is universal. Yet, the path to sustained improvement often feels elusive. We set ambitious goals, we get excited, we start strong, only to find ourselves back at square one, disheartened by a lack of immediate, dramatic results. This is the issue that James Clear focuses on within Atomic Habits. Published in 2018, this book, at the time, challenged the conventional wisdom that significant change requires monumental effort. Instead, Clear introduces a revolutionary concept: incremental changes to your everyday routines. An incremental change is the true catalyst for remarkable transformations. He argues that the cumulative effort of these seemingly insignificant actions, which he terms atomic habits, is far more potent than any grand, one-off gesture. The book's core promise is built on the understanding that our lives are a summation of our habits. Many of our unproductive behaviors, he suggests, are not a reflection of a lack of willpower, but rather the result of unconscious cues triggering unproductive behavior within our environment and daily systems. Atomic Habits is not just about what to do, but how to construct your life, your environment, your identity, and your daily rituals, to naturally lead you towards your desired outcomes. It's about designing systems that make good habits inevitable and bad habits impossible. At its core, Atomic Habits is a practical guide built around a central philosophy. You do not rise to the level of your goals. Instead, you fall to the level of your systems. The book is structured around what Clear calls, quote, the 4 laws of behavioral change. The first law is to make it obvious. This law emphasizes that good behavior change begins with awareness of your habits. If you want to build a good habit, make it obvious. Make the cues that trigger it highly visible. Conversely, to break a bad habit, you need to make its cues invisible. For instance, if you want to remember to take your vitamins, place the bottle directly next to your coffee maker. Conversely, to break a bad habit, you need to make its cues invisible, or difficult to access at least. Want to stop snacking before sleep? Don't keep snacks in your bedroom. Clear introduces concepts like habit stacking and implementation intentions to make desired behaviors more apparent in your daily life. They involve explicitly stating when and where you will perform a habit. For example, when I get home from work, I will immediately change into my running clothes. The goal here is to make the desired action so apparent that your brain effortlessly recognizes it as the next step. The second law is to make it attractive. Clear argues that we're more likely to repeat habits that are enjoyable. This law explores how to make good habits irresistible, often through temptation bundling, where you link a desired action with one you need to do. Our brains are wired to respond to rewards, and by making habits attractive, we boost our motivation. To make good habits stick, you need to make them irresistible. This often involves associating the desired behavior with something you already enjoy. For example, you might tell yourself, I will only watch my favorite TV show when I'm on the treadmill. Our brains are fundamentally wired to seek reward and anticipate pleasure, practically dopamine, which is released not just when we receive a reward, but when we anticipate it too. By making good habits attractive, you tap into this primal reward system, significantly boosting your motivation and likelihood of follow-through. The third law is to make it easy. This law focuses on reducing the friction associated with good habits and increasing it for bad ones. The easier a habit is to perform, the more likely you are to stick with it. Clear suggests structuring your environment to facilitate positive actions and even reducing new habits to, quote, less than 2 minutes to get started. The idea isn't to finish the habit in 2 minutes, but to begin it. For example, reading 30 pages becomes read 1 page, or run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes. The focus is on showing up and building consistency, knowing that momentum will often carry you further. The fourth and final law is to make it satisfying. This final law highlights the importance of immediate rewards for long-term habit formation. Because humans are wired for immediate return environments, making a habit immediately satisfying reinforces the behavior, making it more likely to be repeated. This doesn't mean smoking a cigarette after every workout. It means finding immediate, positive reinforcement that genuinely makes the habit feel rewarding. For example, if you're saving money, you might track your progress visually on a chart, or transfer a small amount to a reward savings account. For bad habits, the inverse applies. Make them immediately unsatisfying or painful. This might involve setting up a habit contract with an accountability partner where you incur a penalty if you skip a desired behavior. The key is to create immediate positive feelings for good habits and immediate negative feelings for bad ones, overriding our natural inclination toward delayed gratification for long-term benefits. But beyond the four laws, Clear also drives home several critical messages to the reader. The first being the power of 1% improvement. He suggests small, seemingly insignificant improvements, when compounded daily, lead to massive results over time. Getting 1% better every day for a year makes you 30 times better than when you started. This principle demolishes the pressure of perfection and instant results, replacing it with the achievable goal of consistent tiny improvements. It's about understanding that progress is rarely linear and that the valley of disappointment, which is the period where effort yields no visible results, is a natural part of the compound effect, eventually leading to a breakthrough. One of the strongest points he makes, in my opinion, is the systems over goals point. Clear stresses that success isn't about reaching a singular goal, but about the ongoing process of improving your quote-unquote systems. Good systems are the foundation for consistent positive change. Systems are about the processes that lead to those outcomes. For example, I will exercise for 30 minutes, 3 times a week, and track my calorie intake daily. While goals are essential for direction, Clear argues that focusing solely on them can be detrimental. If you only focus on the goal, you might experience a yo-yo effect, achieving the goal, then reverting back to old habits because the underlying system hasn't changed. Good systems, he argues, are the true foundation for consistent, repeatable success. They are the processes that reliably move you towards your aspirations, regardless of the specific outcome you're chasing. For me personally, it feels like a pain to have to walk my dog every single day. However, I've made a system that he gets 1 walk a day, every single day, no matter what. The system is that I do it in the morning while it's still cool outside and before I have to go into work. This system ensures that the dog always gets a walk every single day at the same time, and I never skip a walk because it's in my daily routine, i.e. in my system, to walk him every day before work in the morning. Another powerful concept that Clear suggests is identity-based habits. Instead of focusing on what you want to achieve, i.e. an outcome-based habit, he argues that you should focus on who you want to become, which is an identity-based habits. When a habit aligns with your self-image, for example, I'm not a smoker rather than I'm trying to quit smoking, it becomes more sustainable. Instead of saying, I want to run a marathon, think, I am a runner. Instead of, I want to write a book, think, I am a writer. Our habits are how we embody our identity. The more votes you cast for a particular identity, the stronger that identity becomes, and the easier it is to maintain the habits associated with it. This creates a powerful feedback loop. Your habits shape your identity, and your identity reinforces the habits. It's very, very easy for a fitness influencer to go to the gym every day. It's a part of their identity. They think to themselves, I am a fitness influencer. This is who I am. This is what I do. They don't need motivation to go into the gym. It's simply who they are. Another great example is cleaning. Somebody who considers themselves a tidy person who enjoys a clean room doesn't need motivation to clean. They just simply embody it, because that's who they are. The other major point that Clear makes is environment matters more than motivation. He presents a well-discussed and, frankly, worn-out study that every book like this wants to cite. The findings from the Vietnam War heroin addiction study, where soldiers returned home and largely stopped their heroin addiction due to the change in environment. He does this to illustrate that self-control is often less about an innate capacity for willpower and more so about skillful environmental design. He argues that disciplined people aren't necessarily more virtuous or disciplined. They're often just better at structuring their lives and environments to remove temptations and to make desired actions easy and automatic. Your environment is a powerful, often subconscious, cue-generating machine. By intentionally designing your surroundings, you can make good habits the default and bad habits the exception, reducing the need for constant, exhausting willpower. For example, it's much easier to go to the gym when you're in college because you are surrounded by a lot of young people who have free time. It's easy to jump in there with your friends. However, if you're working a full-time 9-to-5 job with older folks and you don't see them work out as much, you're not in the same environment to consistently go to the gym. I'll now dive into some of the good points I think he made in the book. There is a lot to love about Atomic Habits, and it resonates with a lot of people. The first being actionable and practical advice. I do think that he provides clear, step-by-step strategies that readers can immediately implement. The 4 laws we mentioned earlier offer a simple framework for breaking down habit formation. I also like that he has an emphasis on small, consistent changes. For many, the idea of atomic habits is a relief. It takes the pressure off needing to make drastic overhauls and instead champions the achievable, daily incremental improvements that truly accumulate. I also think he had strong anecdotal evidence and real-world examples throughout the book. He effectively used stories, such as the British cycling team's success to everyday scenarios, thus illustrating his points and make the concepts more relatable and memorable to the average reader. I also like how he focuses on systems and identity, shifting the focus from outcomes to processes and, more importantly, to who you are becoming, provides a deeper, more sustainable foundation for personal growth. This moves beyond mere willpower. And I also like the accessible language and engaging writing. It reminded me a lot of Freakonomics. This book is well written and easy to understand, making the more complex psychological concepts digestible for a wide audience. However, the main thing I wanted to get to in this video is where I disagree with the book. While Atomic Habits offers invaluable insights and a robust framework, it's important to approach any universal guide with a nuanced perspective. As comprehensive as it is, there are a few areas where I believe the book's approach could be expanded or where its assumptions might not fully apply to everyone, especially given the complexities of the human experience. First, I feel like it doesn't fully explain the underlying psychology. The book excels as a how-to guide, providing actionable steps and drawing from established psychological concepts like the habit loop and the principles of classical and operant conditioning. However, it often focuses more on what works than why it works at a deeper psychological level. While Clear introduces concepts like dopamine's role in craving, he doesn't delve extensively into the neuroscientific or cognitive mechanisms underpinning these processes. For readers seeking a more profound understanding of the human mind and its intricate workings, the why behind the how, the book might feel somewhat surface level in its psychological explanations. Thus, I consider it pop psychology. It's a fantastic manual for behavioral changes, but less of a comprehensive textbook on the psychology of habits. I also think that it has older and potentially outdated ideas, especially within this rapidly evolving field. The foundational concepts presented in Atomic Habits are largely based on well-established principles of behavioral psychology, some of which have been around for decades, such as the habit loop. While these principles are undeniably effective and form a solid basis, the field of psychological research is constantly advancing. Newer research in fields like self-regulation, cognitive load, executive function, and the neurobiology of motivation might offer more complex and nuanced models of human behavior that are not fully integrated into Clear's framework. While the book's advice remains generally sound, it might not reflect the cutting edge of behavioral science in every aspect. I also believe that Clear lacks consideration of individual differences. This is a significant point of concern for me. Atomic Habits presents a universal framework that assumes a baseline level of cognitive and emotional functioning. However, what about individuals that are navigating the profound challenges of mental health conditions, such as clinical depression, anxiety disorders, ADHD, or PTSD? For someone struggling with severe apathy, executive dysfunction, or the debilitating effects of past trauma, simply making it obvious or making it easy can be an insurmountable hurdle. The book's advice, while generally excellent, can feel less applicable and perhaps even discouraging when deep-seated psychological or emotional barriers are present. I really think that it doesn't do a good job of addressing the need for external support or the need for therapy or specialized drugs, medicines, strategies that are often required for cases like this. I also feel as though the book really does show its age, as it has a limited focus on social media and complex personal issues. In our hyper-connected, often overwhelming modern world, new challenges to habit formation have emerged. The book touches on environmental cues, but it doesn't specifically delve into the unique complexities posed by pervasive digital environments and the addictive loops created by social media platforms. If you think you're going to get over your TikTok addiction with this book, it might not be the right one. Moreover, complex personal issues like unresolved past trauma, chronic stress, or significant emotional regulation difficulties can massively disrupt an individual's ability to implement or sustain habits, regardless of how well their environment is designed. The book largely focuses on rational, systematic approaches to habit formation, thus potentially overlooking the profound, often irrational, impact of deep-seated psychological struggles on our daily habits. The last negative point I want to make about the book is Clear's bootstrap mentality. I thought there was a tendency throughout the book to overemphasize personal characteristics and understate situational factors when explaining other people's behavior. While Clear acknowledges the importance of environment, which I agree with, the strong emphasis on individual responsibility and control over habit formation can inadvertently lead to a bootstrap mentality. While Clear commendably asserts that bad habits are not a result of moral weakness or a lack of self-control, and emphasizes the critical role of environment in habit formation, the book's overall tone and the type of solutions it proposes can accidentally lead some readers to overlook the core structure standing in their way. Despite acknowledging that, quote, disciplined people are better at structuring their lives to remove temptation, unquote, and highlighting how a change in the environment can alter behavior, as seen in the previously mentioned Vietnam War study, the primary emphasis remains on individual responsibility for engineering that environment and making personal choices. This leads the reader to focus really hard on individual agency, and encouraging them to improve who you are, and asserting that, quote, success is the result of daily habits, unquote. This can, for some, subtly discount the immense impact of external, systematic factors that lie beyond an individual's immediate control. For instance, the book does not deeply explore how socioeconomic disparities, lack of access to resources, systemic oppression, or ingrained societal biases can create significant and often insurmountable environmental barriers to habit formation, making it profoundly difficult for certain individuals to apply the book's principles. Indeed, I really think this book was made for somebody living in America, in the suburbs, or any other part of the developed world, not in a war-torn country dealing with massive poverty. This book really holds no values for child soldiers or people working the diamond mines in the Republic of Congo. It only really works if you're in a situation in order to make changes to your environment, or you're able to make changes to your identity. Not everyone has the privilege of those two decisions, and yet the entire book hinges on that. While Clear speaks of maximizing, quote, advantages that correspond to your personality, genetics, and natural gifts, unquote, this perspective, without sufficient acknowledgement of broader external disadvantages, could be misinterpreted. It might lead to a fundamental attribution error, where an individual's struggle to form good habits is primarily attributed to their personal failings or lack of effort, rather than recognizing the powerful, often overwhelming influence of external circumstances. This approach, while empowering for some, risks fostering a sense of blame or inadequacy for those facing structural challenges that the book's individually focused strategies do not fully address. With all of that out of the way, I do want to say that Atomic Habits stands as an exceptionally valuable and influential work for anyone seeking to master their daily routines and cultivating lasting positive change. Its highly actionable frameworks and the transformative emphasis on identity provide a robust and practical foundation for personal growth, in most circumstances. By championing the power of small, consistent improvements and advocating for the strategic design of supportive systems, the book offers a compelling and often effective pathway to significant personal transformation. While Atomic Habits offers highly digestible and actionable advice, I argue that it's a pop psychology due to its tendency to streamline complex behavioral science into universally applicable formulas. While incredibly effective for many, this approach, by nature, can risk oversimplifying the intricate psychological underpinnings of habit formation. It often prioritizes practical how-to steps over a deep dive into the nuanced cognitive and emotional processes involved, sometimes relying more on compelling anecdotes and accessible frameworks as opposed to rigorous academic depth. This accessibility, while a strength for broad appeal, can also mean it doesn't fully grapple with the complexities of individual psychological differences or the deeper, often unconscious, factors that drive behavior and positioning. It is certainly more of a self-help manual. But what are your thoughts on Atomic Habits? Have you implemented any of his strategies? Let me know in the comments below. Please like the video if you found it helpful and subscribe for more content.